This is Seasons of Discontent with your hosts Rick Snyder and Matt Combs.
Welcome to Seasons of Discontent. Oh, maybe it's Seasons of Content. I'm not sure. Things are going too well. But it's Season 11, Episode 19, brought to you by Rick Snyder's Washington, across social media. And I'm Rick.
And I'm Matt.
And we're back discussing all things Washington sports and life as part of the mighty Rick Snyder Empire. Matt, maybe we should call it Seasons of Content. Everybody's happy.
Did you notice last week I altered our logo on the YouTube video?
I don't watch it.
I know.
That's funny. No, because I don't watch. I already talked. I don't need to see myself talking.
Yeah, exactly.
Or my whiteboard back there. Can you see our whiteboard? Yeah. See, it says Content. So, don't worry. Someone will come along. We can always talk about Wizards if we want. Something like that on there. But, the greatest thing about the Washington Commanders' victory over New York Giants, to me, it was a smashmouth game. Both sides stood there and said, screw you, we're running past you, and you can try and stop us. And they wailed on each other pretty good. And each side got their licks in. I'll give it that. Washington managed to win with the passing game and doing it. But it was a pound-per-pound kind of game back in the 80s and 90s it was known for. And that's a little bit different than this team is built. So I was pretty glad to see them say, all right, we'll see whose butt kicks here.
That's one of the things, obviously being 7-2, there's a lot of good to kind of dissect, I would say. And realistically, Rick, none of the wins, aside from maybe the Cardinals and I'd say the Browns wins, those were just complete and utter butt kickings on both sides of the ball. But every win, and the Panthers too. Let's not forget about the Panthers. Aside from those three, I would say the other four wins have just been so different, Cincinnati was a back and forth, just no defense on either side, just making play after play on the offense. And it was basically whoever's going to score last is going to win. And that's pretty much what happened. You look at the first Giants win where we couldn't get into the end zone. It was all field goals. They just brought Seibert in. He kicked 7 field goals to win the game. And then this Giants game, like you said, it was just smash mouth. Terry got his, which I was happy for because the corner who covers Terry, I don't know his last name, but where's number 3? He was talking some trash about Terry. So Terry got his 2 catches for 2 touchdowns. Can't beat that. And then, even in the loss, aside from the Tampa Bay loss, I would say even with the Ravens loss, we talked about it. There's no such thing as a moral victory, but at the end of the day, you hung with one of the top teams in the league. You came up short, but you hung with them for the most part. But every win, aside from those blowouts, has kind of been different. And even in the blowouts, it was a defensive led, like Carolina. It started off with a pick 6 by Dante Fowler. We hadn't seen that all season. I think that was one of the first interceptions this team had all season. So every win has been different, and it just shows you that if you're going to stop one element of this team, there is another element, maybe 2 or 3 behind that one that's going to come up and still score some points and still stop you.
And it was a pretty resilient effort, too, because the Giants, in the early part, were really taking it. In the first quarter, the Giants had the ball 12 and a half minutes, and Washington managed to reverse all that and take over. You don't usually see that kind of adjustments by this team in recent years. And even recently this season, I haven't seen as much of it. But they did manage, especially the defensive line, to turn it around. Because I thought, man, the Giants are going to pound this team. And by the fourth quarter, the defense is going to have nothing left in them. Mm-hmm. But the offensive just would go, oh, okay, we got the ball, score. You see the defense like, could you slow down a little? I need to catch my breath.
Yeah, that was the thing, especially after the Jones turnover. I mean, they scored relatively fast, and that defense, you could tell by the end of the game, the defense was a little gassed. But, it's hard to really be upset when you're scoring points. Now, they did kind of sputter in the second half, and resulted to just kicking field goals. But, that's the type, like I said, there's so many different ways to win the game, and they just find ways to win, which we're not used to with this team. We're just not used to having a win mentality.
Yeah, that's your another great plus. No sacks allowed. Last time it was 5 sacks, although I think a couple of those were JD running into things.
Yeah.
This offensive line, held firm. It's really getting good. I mean, Alec Reddy's playing with a really bad ankle, and yet he's a dog, man. He ain't getting past them. So is Cosme, there. The center has been really smart with things. Coleman came back and played a really good game against a good pass rush on there. So in the right tackle, didn't get caught for any mistakes, I think, this time. So, I mean, overall, that line did well. And then you had a running game where Brian Robinson, the 2 hours out is shaking his head on the field trying to convince the coaches to let him play. And they just said, nah, man, we got half the season to go. We need you in one piece. He's got a couple problems. And they say, hey, C-Rod, your turn. And that guy came in and played great too. Eckler had popped off a couple of nice runs. They could run the ball effectively without Robinson. I mean, you'd like him, especially in a smash mouth game, but they ran fine without him.
But it's just like they did a couple games ago with McNichols. McNichols came out of nowhere when Brian Robinson was out and had a great game. I mean, it's truly a running back by committee with this team. Obviously, Brian is a starter. Brian Robinson's your starter, and he's going to be your goal line sledgehammer. But we saw Eckler carry the load for the most part of the first half, and then he gets a rest, and they tried out Rodriguez, who had a little bit of success with this team last year. And then of course you still have McNichols as well. I mean, it's just you never know where it's coming from. I mean, and Rick, I'll tell you, aside from obviously the Hail Mary catch last week, Noah Brown has been a great addition to this team, not just for what he can do catching the ball, but running the ball. The guy he's a hell of a pass blocker for a wide receiver. And I know I sent out a tweet last night after the game. The trade deadline is tomorrow. We're recording on Monday. It's Tuesday. There's something else happening on Tuesday, but I'm going to be focused on the trade deadline. But does Peters feel compelled to make a move? We've talked about it with this team. They're ahead of schedule as far as all metrics go. Vegas had them at 6.5 wins. Hell, we're 9 games in the season. They've already beat it. They've already gone above the win total. Is Adam Peters compelled to make a move? The three glaring issues I would say is obviously corner. We saw it against the Giants. We've seen it all season. St. Juste is not a number one corner. Manuel Forbes, I feel like they've already given up on. I don't know how many snaps he had against the Giants, but I didn't see him.
I checked the snap count. He didn't have any.
Yeah, Forbes' biggest contribution to this team, he had a pick obviously against Carolina, but was picking those two guys up picking the two Bears up after they were sitting on the ground after they just lost, the game. But corner is Jeremy Chin played out of his mind yesterday. He's been a really good addition at safety. You have I feel like with Quan Martin, and of course you've got some guys that have been here for a while in your safety room, but you've got to add a premier corner. You've got to add a number one corner. The only one that's really out there is Marshawn Lattimore of New Orleans, and I don't know how much that's going to cost to get him out of New Orleans. So, but aside from that, you need a pass rush, you need a defensive end, and you need another wide receiver. But realistically, I mean, wide receiver can come in the draft. But Noah Brown being your number 2 is not a bad thing, because they're not going to expect him to go out there and catch 70 balls in a season. He can catch 35, 45 balls this season, but it's what he does along the run game and in other areas of the game where he's more valuable.
Yeah, replacing Jahan Dotson with him. You know how many catches Jahan Dotson has for the Eagles?
Well, I know last night he caught a ball against the Jaguars, and the one catch that he had surpassed his entire season total.
Well, he's got 7 catches for the year. Man, Peters really robbed Philly on that one, getting a third rounder for a guy with 7 catches.
You know what? Hey, every time that Miami loses, that pick gets better and better and better, because that's Miami's 3rd round pick.
Yeah, so it's I don't know that Peters will make a move. I know he's kicking the cans, but that doesn't mean that anybody's willing to give up somebody. To me, I wrote a column today for 1067 The Fan, that I write for Odyssey.com, where I said, listen, include Manuel Forbes in any trade you make and try and use him to lower the overall draft compensation. So if somebody wants a 2, try and go a 3 in Forbes. The one thing about Forbes, not other teams haven't given up on him. They're saying, well, he was a first rounder and they just didn't know how to use him, and 2 different coaches, and we can figure him out. And if you did, you got him for 3 more years under contract.
Yeah.
So there's some value there. You could say, I'll give you a 3rd in Forbes instead of a 2, something like that. Get rid of a guy that you're not going to play. Hasn't played 2 of the last 4 games, 6 snaps in the 3rd game. He played 23 in one of them. They got desperate. I think you have to just cut with that one and let it go. If you could get a corner or a defensive pass rusher, the nice thing about those 2 positions are they can pretty much play independently from the go. Just come in here. The pass rusher, there's the quarterback, go for him. The corner, you got to go one-on-one with their top guy. You don't need to know the whole playbook. You can kind of get by with, on the short term at least, of just go ahead and plug and play. Receivers a little harder. They got to know the routes. You can give them a route or 2, but that's not making them an effective player. I would say in the end, I don't think they will make a move, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did on it, because the key I wrote is, you got a shot at the Super Bowl. And I know, as crazy as that sounds, they got the number 2 record right now. If they can get through the next few weeks, to me, you got 4 games to really playing for. The 2 Philly games, more the Atlanta game, because that might be a wild card situation, and Pittsburgh, just to see how you match up. But that's the 4th one on my order. The 2 Philly games are 1-2, Atlanta, then Pittsburgh. If you can, win half your games going, the rest of the games are definitely winnable. So you've got a shot at getting to the playoffs, but you can't win deep in the playoffs with this secondary. It just can't. Other teams are going to light you up for too many points. So to me, it's not a given that next year they're going to be a better team, because they're a year to go. Got a lot of 1-year contracts. Each season is its own thing. They're buying into Quinn right now, but after a year of it, will they still? Sophomore seasons are tougher. Ask Chase Young on that. And I think that's why, if you really think you got a shot, go all in. Because what the hell, win the Super Bowl and worry about the rest later. I don't know if they can, but I think they can give it a real run.
Let me ask you, is there any validity to the report that Schefter came out with yesterday saying that players are asking their agents to be traded to the Commanders?
Well, let's parse this out. I'm no fan of Adam Schefter from a long time ago, but where's the meat in that story? Anybody can say, yeah, there's some players that want to go to D.C. Okay, what else you got? Nothing. Well, Schefter likes to help agents out too sometimes.
I agree.
His information.
But it is a nice story as to where, during the Dan Snyder era, excuse me, I can't speak tonight. During the Dan Snyder era, it was come to Washington to get paid. Now it's come to Washington to play for a good organization that has a chance to win a Super Bowl, and that does have it. That has a lot of stock in it too, Rick. I mean, if they're 2-7, guys aren't going to be asking to come here, but they're 7-2.
It's one of those stories, and I was involved in many stories like this. It's called plausible deniability, which means no one can knock down the story because it's plausible. There's nobody to say it's not true.
Right.
Certainly the Reds, Commanders aren't going to be saying it's not true on there. It kind of goes back to me. One of the real reasons this team is winning is that very notion that was among coaches. Dan Quinn, I'm going to write a column about this, basically followed Abraham Lincoln's way of going team of rivals. Abraham Lincoln's top 3 cabinet members were guys who ran against him in the presidential election. And he picked up a 4th later, Stanton. He picked the guys on the other side of the aisle and later won them over and did what they had to do. The team of rivals thing is what Quinn kind of did too. Quinn, most coaches take, 85, probably 3/4 of their staff are guys they've worked with before, they know well. Quinn's got a few buddies on the staff, but he's got a lot of guys he never met Kingsbury until this happened. So he was like, let me go find guys I've competed against, bring them in on my coaching staff because they're that good. A lot of coaches wouldn't have the guts because if you're going to take an offensive coordinator that you don't know personally, that guy can get you fired. So you're not going to take a chance on somebody you don't know. Quinn did, so I don't know, Quinn may, if this goes well, Quinn may change coaching tremendously by the way he does things and demeanor. And he's not a guy that's the Paris Island drill sergeant. He's very much an HR speaking kind of guy, and everybody buys in. Do they buy in a second year, a third year? Does it get old? That kind of thing can happen too. That's why I said, just because it's working now doesn't mean it's going to work later. Look at Zorn. He was 6-2. His players thought he was crazy as hell, and then it all fell apart. So, and gone. So,
but I don't know. I think Dan, we definitely saw that with Quinn in Atlanta, where it was hot for the first 2 years or so, and then he lost the room. But he also lost his offensive coordinator. That was Kyle Shanahan. I think, I just compare it to this. Since Sunday, we've already seen 2 people fired. We saw Dennis Allen fired with the Saints. We've seen the offensive coordinator plus a couple other guys for the Raiders get fired. Let's not forget, the Raiders had a deal in place to sign Cliff Kingsbury as their OC when Antonio Pierce took over as head coach. And that deal fell through. We don't know why. Something happened. They didn't like one another. And Adam Peters and Dan Quinn swooped in and grabbed him. And it's probably been the best move for this team. You talk about buddies. He brought in, he did bring in Joe Witt, who I still believe that Joe Witt is going to be a great defensive coordinator and and soon a head coach in this league. Let's not short this defense. This defense is not talented on paper. This isn't the Deion Bruce Smith team that we had back in the 2000s that everybody thought was, it's not the Ravens of back in the day either with Ray Lewis and them guys. This team on paper is a ragtag bunch that has been completely overhauled, with, old guys like Bobby Wagner, and guys that were on the scrap heap like this Ignabogaway guy that they got from the Cowboys. I mean, a lot of these guys, Cleveland Farrell, that was a first round draft pick by the Raiders, but everybody was like, y'all are stupid. Why are you taking him so high? It wasn't a good pick. Dante Fowler has fallen off from what he was. I mean, he was a first or second round draft pick back in the day, but on paper, this defense was not supposed to be good. This defense is actually pretty good. You know what I mean? Like we talked about at the beginning of the show, this was a smash mouth. We're going to punch you in the mouth and see how you react type of football game. And, we saw it against Carolina as well. It comes from so many different places with this team. You just don't know where it's coming from. And that's a credit to coaching. It's a credit to Dan. It's a credit to Joe Witt.
Fowler has more sacks than Sweat and Young combined.
Yeah.
How do you like that? It's not a big number. It's not a big.
It's what, 6.5?
Yeah, he got 2 yesterday. So
so he's up to like 8.5.
I think I forget. He's 6.5. I think is what he is. But
6.5. Okay.
I mean, because Sweat and Young barely have anything. Young is just everything we knew he was. Another one of Ron's picks. But if you look at the defense, you'd say, okay, who are their best players? Well, Frankie Luvu is a banger.
Oh, he's a beast.
Chin's really playing well. Wagner's started, I thought, a little slow, but playing well. And then Payne is okay, but not great.
Johnny Newton, baby.
And who?
Johnny Newton, man. Johnny Newton. That kid, man. John Allen goes down and Newton stepped right into his place. He's been playing very well. And Big Phil Mathis, I know he got injured yesterday, but Phil Mathis has been playing very well too. Their defensive tackles are pretty solid on this team. Yeah,
I mean, overall, you just look at their defense, their secondary, you just say, well, okay, St. Jude's can't cover a number one corner, but he could cover a 2, but that's not how they're doing it because they don't have a 1. There's your glaring error. And man, in the playoffs, they go after St. Jude's.
Oh yeah, they picked on him yesterday when he was on Neighbors. I mean, we saw it.
Yeah, that's your strike zone right there. Is that if you can't get better in the playoffs, that's where they're going to kill you on there. And it's too bad because St. Juice is a decent player in the right role. He's just not in the right role.
Yeah, and unfortunately with St. Just, I feel like with his body size, he would be better as kind of like that, almost what Jeremy Chin is, where he's a hybrid linebacker safety type, where he can cover a tight end out of the backfield, but he could also rush the passer type thing. Or, I know they tried that with Sua Cravens, where he was supposed to be this, what hybrid Buffalo nickel type player. He almost fits that type, and that as far as his body goes, but he was drafted here to be a corner. Ron made him a corner, and he's played corner. And unfortunately, through losing corners and trading corners, he's been elevated to your number one. I mean, let's be honest. Emmanuel Forbes was supposed to be the number one corner on this team by now, and we all know how that's going. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. And also you have to look at it this way, Rick. Does a guy like Marshawn Lattimore coming in, does that mess up your room? That room right now is humming. That defensive room is humming. Do you mess that up by bringing somebody like that in? I mean, that's a guy that's had, I won't say character issues, but he's been known to run his mouth from time to time. Is that the type of person that you want to inject into this room of these guys that have been doing this for 9 weeks together? And do you put him in that room like that? So that's what Adam kind of has to really. Hey, look, that's why Adam Peters got a lot of money to be here.
Yeah, I mean, Lattimore, I saw a lot of pictures today of Lattimore. Lattimore at the airport in New Orleans with Quinn, which is impossible. But they were, New York to D.C. Oh, then you saw Marshawn checking in at Dulles Airport, getting a rental car. And, it took me about half a second to go, what?
Hey, did Josh Harris get Redskins 1 when he bought the team? I mean, are we still going to track that thing around and figure out where it's flying to?
I think that went with Dan.
Okay, good.
That's over in Europe on there. Matter of fact, they sold Redskins 2, which was his wife's plane. He sold hers, or he's trying to sell hers for it. It's supposed to be very nice. I don't know. I don't have it. But I don't know. All right. So you're going to tell us who you're voting for tomorrow?
No. I have done zero research.
I'm voting for the winner.
Yeah, there you go. I'm going to vote for. Hey, look, I'm voting for the male or female that is going to lower my grocery bill.
Oh yeah, I was at Costco today and spent $300.
Dude, that's a Walmart trip for me.
Wow.
And we're buying great value stuff, but I got 2 kids. It's your kids are grown and out of the house.
Yeah, they were all 10 of them were at the house last night eating me out of the house. And,
I was going to say, you guys are great kids. I'm sure they're growing.
Yeah, they said we can have Thanksgiving here. I thought, here we go. Costco $5 pumpkin pies. You can't beat it. I tried Costco's cheese pizza today, and people are like, "No way, you've never had this." I'm like, "I'm telling you, man. I don't go to Costco a lot."
You didn't get a chicken bake? You got the pizza?
I got the pizza because the people said, I always get the hot dog because it's $1.50 for that and a drink. You can't beat that. My pizza's was $2.80 for a drink too. But I'd never had Costco pizza, the cheese pizza. I'd had pepperoni once. And people were like, you're a liar. Anyway, I was like, I tried it. It's up on YouTube now. It was okay.
Along with your Wawa pizza. You got a pizza from Wawa.
Yeah, that was, if you haven't seen it, go to that one. So I don't know if I screwed it up on the touchpad or what, but I wanted half and half pepperoni, half sausage. And I opened up the box, and the pepperoni and sausage are on the same half. And then the other one's cheese. Somehow screw this up.
I think you screwed that up.
Maybe I did. Maybe the guy making it thought, this guy's crazy. I don't know what happened there. But it was, Wawa pizza was for $4 for a personal one, $10 for a large. It was okay. It's better than 7-Eleven pizza. I'll say that. Anything's better. 7-Eleven pizza's got to be at the bottom of the pack. On there, but it wasn't great.
Hey, look, I worked in the field for 17 years. 7-Eleven pizza has saved me on more than one occasion when there was nothing else to eat.
Well, yeah, back in the old days.
That and when the hot dogs were 2 for $3. Oh, buddy.
Oh yeah, that's when I weighed 315.
That's why I'm. Hey, look, my Twitter handle ain't Fat Matt because it rhymes. Okay.
All right. Well, that's good. All right. So we'll be back on Thursday with a whole new president and whoever it is. I don't know. Just go vote. That's what I tell people. Go vote. We'll fight about the rest later. But This will be my 12th presidential election. I'm about even on winning, losing of these. I voted for Jimmy Carter.
Wow.
That's how far back I go. I have not missed an election since 78.
I think it's more crazy that he's still alive.
I haven't voted yet. I'm going to be at school tomorrow morning.
There you go.
I guess I probably should. I don't know. Half the people in America have already voted, which is really weird.
Yeah.
For all that. But, it probably means less lines tomorrow. So that'd be great. And then we'll all stay up and watch, 11 o'clock, fall asleep and still don't know who the president is.
No, we ain't going to know till Wednesday.
Oh, probably easy. Well, I mean, it's not unusual, though. A lot of presidential elections go into wee hours, even for everything. My only thing was I tell people, if the state allows advanced voting by mail or whatever, you should do it up to like so many days out from the election and stop. Count all those votes so that 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, you already know all that data. Then you just lump in the live stuff and you're done. Don't wait till everything's voted on and, okay, we got to count everything. Good Lord, what are you doing that for? Yeah. That doesn't seem like a real brilliant idea. I mean, anybody should figure that one out.
Come on, Rick. It's the federal government. You know how this works.
God, it seems like, don't
You've lived here long enough. Then they don't know how to do everything correctly.
Man, I didn't know I was giving away $1 million idea on that. Just seemed like common sense. But
well, let's go ahead and wrap it up so you don't give away any more, because I got a kid that needs a college fund.
All right. Well, there you go. Well, there's some guy giving you $1 million if you want to go a certain way. So, what the heck? All right. Let's see. There we go. I'm Rick Snyder.
I'm Matt.
And we'll be back. See you Thursday.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Seasons of Discontent with your hosts, Rick Snyder and Matt Combs.